was a continued history of women's rights all throughout the world. There has also been a major amount of women discrimination. Women's rights are the rights and entitlements claimed for women and girls of many societies worldwide. In some places, these rights are supported by law, local customs, and behavior. Issues commonly associated with women's rights include the right to vote, to work, to equal pay, to own property, to education, to serve in the military, and parental rights. Although men and women are different mentally and physically, they should both be treated as equals and have the same rights, education, and career opportunities. They should be able to enjoy life greatly and freely as men can. Women's suffrage is the right of women to vote and to stand for electoral office. National and international organizations formed to coordinate efforts to gain voting rights, especially the International Women's Suffrage Alliance, and also work for equal civil rights for women. The first Convention on Women's Rights was developed as a resolution and recommendation of women's suffrage in defiance of some of its organizers. The restrictions against women voting in national elections were not removed until 1950. The first place to introduce women's suffrage was located in Finland. Many countries limited suffrage for women was granted before universal suffrage for men. Women delegates Antoinette Brown and Susan B. Anthony are not allowed to speak at the World's Temperance Convention held in New York City. It was more known that men were more capable of dealing with ambitious work. Women, on the other hand, were assumed to not have the ability to handle the compression of life outside and away from home. They were only known for raising children and fugitive on the conduct that were brutally burdened upon them as society to begin to originate. We have come an endured way since then. John F. Kennedy advised and arranged an equal balance for both men and women. Achieving this goal required a long, difficult struggle, but was finally accomplished after a couple of decades of agitation and protest. When the Equal Pay Act was signed, women were earning around 59 cents to what men earned. The gap was not large, but not entirely disappeared. As time passed by, a woman's wage became about 80 cents or sometimes even less. Women are using their skills and abilities in many industries to make their chance bigger in a career and annual pay. The marriage law of 1950 gave women the right to be equalized to men. Action was suddenly included, particularly around the question of women's equal rights to the land as part of the requirement for their emancipation. Certain occupations were mainly expected towards women, such as teachers, social workers, nurses, and librarians. But pretty soon a number of other types of jobs opened up. Jobs such as typists, filling clerks, stenographers, and even some secretary roles all became possible for young women. There were more professional opportunities for women in the 1920s than there had ever been before. The Seneca Falls Women's Rights Convention marked the beginning of the women's rights movement in the United States. The convention recruited supporters and included many action steps to advance the movement. Over 100 participants of the convention signed this pledge. The main purpose of this convention was to receive the right to live a life filled with freedom, being included in a government that is supported with taxes, and living free of a lifetime dominated by another person. The assumptions about how life should and must be lived were once by experiences whose work brought about changed minds and attitudes. Over time, social and legal change have been accomplishedly made and are now acknowledged that they go disregarded by people whose lives have been mannerly alternated. Many people who have lived through the modern decades of this development have come to acquire what has eventuated. Many numbers of decades of women have come together to effect these changes in the most creative ways. They have made this change possible by setting up meetings, creating petition drives, lobbying, public speaking, and non-violent resistance. Many counter-arguments that are thought are usually stated that women should be back in the home where they can maintain the house, raising the children, and preparing the meals for the man, because he is the one who runs the house and earns his money, and usually uses it only to spend it on his beloved family. Also, women should not have the right to vote, and that right should be revoked. It was also said that women somewhere along the line felt the urge to upset this perfect balance of the way things were. They wanted to somehow be independent and were willing to destroy society's way of life to do it. To think that way is not right, because women should be able to do things just as freely as men. People think that since the men are stronger, they are capable of more, but that is just sexist. Women have a much higher intelligence span and are much more organized and are more understanding. It is understood that men may have the ability of being stronger, but it will not get far in a job, considering that jobs nowadays require the things women have over men. This is taking the form of accumulation of property rights, to women's suffrage, and the right of women to vote, and the right to work for equal pay. Today, there are still remaining problems towards women. A major problem is sexual harassment. It is a very common problem and is very unfair complication for females. Also, there is unequal payment between men and women. Many women work with men at the same exact time and also have the same abilities as men, but yet still receive a less amount of money. In all respect, women should be allowed to enter areas of high environment in politics, business, and education. When the same amount of women and men both belong in the same areas, it will finally establish an equivalent society and country. People should really start to open their eyes and witness the true potential women has, because women are very capable of doing many things.